Hi, I'm Karen Giles, a grateful and enthusiastic patient of Dr. Damon Miller's, and we're here today to talk about recall healing and how Dr. Miller uses it in his practice. So, Dr. Miller, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your background.
Sure. My name is Damon Miller, and I do an integrative practice of medicine now in Redwood City, California. I left my hospital-based practice in 1995 and have done a lot of things. Started out in acupuncture, learned a lot about detoxification, learned a lot about nutrition, supplements, and have ended up working a lot with chronic disease. A lot of the people who come to see me come because they're really not being well served by pharmacy and surgery. They have complex problems for which there is no pill, there is no simple solution, and I'm grateful to say that I've learned things from many mentors over the years that have allowed me to help people when they come to me with that kind of a problem. Today we were going to talk about recall healing. Gilbert Renaud is my mentor for recall healing, and Karen and I know each other because we both share a profound interest and love for this work. And today I wanted to talk about how I use it in a medical practice, in the kind of integrative medical practice that I have.
Well, from my perspective, I'm as both a patient of yours first and then getting trained in recall healing, I was really interested in you sharing with other doctors and medical professionals how you used it. With me, it was just so inspiring because at my first session with you, you just simply asked me a question that got me to the root of an emotional issue that was correlated to why I came to you in the first place. So I would love if you could share that with our audience.
I wish it was always that easy, because it's not. But let me just say just a real quick word about sort of the origins of recall healing. The work actually began with a German oncologist, Dr. Hammer, Dr. Gerd Reiki Hammer in Germany. And you can read, if you look up German New Medicine, you can read quite a bit about his journey, with cancer, and his discovery of this connection between the things that happen to us in our life, the shocks, the traumas, the stresses, and how those settle into our body. One of his students, Dr. Claude Sabbah in Paris, took up this work and modified it some, and that led to some separation between Dr. Hammer and Dr. Sabbah. Dr. Hammer really wanted purity in the work that was being done, and so he distanced himself from Dr. Sabbah. But Dr. Sabbah has trained many people, and Gilbert Renaud, who now lives in Vancouver, Canada, is the person that we've both studied with, partly because Gilbert speaks very good English, and I don't speak very good French, and so if I wanted to learn this, I needed someone who I could understand. But Gilbert teaches now in Canada, Europe, United States, around the world. But the notion of starting, and what Dr. Sabbah did, starting with someone's illness or symptom or whatever problem is going on, starting there and then looking at the poetry of, well, what might be the clue in where this problem is settled and what might be some of the things that are underlying it. And so I guess I can give an example just from myself, so I'm not giving away anything, but I tore a tendon in my left elbow, and I was a little perplexed by that. I mean, I wasn't really doing anything all that outlandish, but it was a pretty significant injury and required surgery to repair it. And talking with Gilbert about, well, what does it mean that I tore a tendon in my left elbow? And his first question is, well, the arm, elbow, shoulder, those are related to work. And has there been something where you felt torn, or there's been an issue where you just couldn't hold on to something in your work? And immediately I realized that I'd been working for years with a woman, Grace Halloran. She had developed some very novel treatments for retinal disease, macular degeneration, retinitis pigmentosa, things like that. Diseases for which modern medicine has nothing to offer. And we were working with people, and their vision was being restored, and this was quite profound work for me. A big part of my practice, and with her death, I was worried, am I going to be able to continue with this without her? Am I going to be, or is this all going to be lost? Am I going to lose it? Is the world going to lose it? Is it just going to be lost? And it was within weeks after her death that this injury occurred. And now I'm not trying to say that her death caused my injury, but there definitely was, all of my concern, all of that had probably made this area vulnerable. And I have much better stories, but the purpose of this isn't to tell you stories about recall healing, but I will say that one of the things that the study of recall healing has led to is when I take a history from someone now, I'm much more interested in the backstory, in putting together the puzzle of, well, what are the other things going on in your life? What have been the stresses? What are the challenges? Where have the shocks been? And this, now I'm talking just as a Western MD. You're taught in medical school that the history is very important, and that by the time you finish talking to a person, you've used up 90% of the chance you have to figure out what's wrong with them. So 9 times out of 10, you should know what's wrong with the person by the time you finish taking the history. And that's still the basic thing. And then physical exam, labs, those may confirm your thoughts, they may give you a little more information, but if you're clueless at the end of the history taking, you have 1 chance out of 10 left to find an answer for what's going on with the person. And so this has just really enriched that whole part of my medical practice. So if I'm talking with someone, and you just ask questions, what was going on, what was happening, and those questions are informed by the nature of their problem. So, there's a way that you start. If they have had a problem with their heart, was there an issue with territory? Were they sort of having to fight for territory? If there was an issue with their kidneys, was there an issue with sort of maybe marking their territory, or maybe their family of origin? There are these ways, and it sounds a bit, connect the dots kind of thing, a la Louise Hay's, and that is the way you start, and sometimes just a simple question based upon what you see, it's kind of a home run, like you were saying.
Well, even one of the questions you asked me was, when did it start? Simple things like that.
Right, and you're always asking, when did it start? But you're not necessarily, medicine acknowledges the connection between the mind and the body, but it doesn't really take it seriously. And so, what were you feeling? What was going on? Were there stresses in your life? And often, one of the things that recall healing teaches you, if you get into the study of it, is that the setup, the programming to respond in a certain way actually often is laid down at a much earlier age. And so, if you were having a problem with feeling rejected, poor self-esteem, or something like that was coming out as you talk to the person, that all may have come from things much younger, when they were a baby or when they were even in their mother's womb. But you ask about those things, and usually, other than a cursory question about were there complications surrounding your birth, was it a C-section or something, that would be the only thing in the past I would have ever asked someone. But you ask people, first you ask them, do I have your permission to ask you some questions about what was going on around your parents in the time of your birth? Most people are more than happy to say yes to that. They know that it's important. Deep down inside, they know that all of this material is important. They have been dying to talk about it. They know that it's somehow connected, and no doctor has ever asked them. And so when I asked them, what was your mother feeling and thinking when she was carrying you? What happened in the year after your birth? Just what was going on when you were younger? And there are ways that we look at it, but it's just made the whole practice of medicine for me something that I really enjoy. I mean, the idea of working with people for the rest of my life looks very attractive to me. The notion of working with people and hearing their story, because it brings that whole aspect of story into the medical practice.
And it makes it a little more effective, too. Sometimes you get results that are just
right.
A lot faster.
Dr. Hammer, and again, we don't have time in this brief video to give a whole story, but he was an oncologist, and near the end of his time working as an oncologist in Germany, a lot of the time he would spend with people, he was simply talking with them, getting the story, working on putting together their story with their illness. He wasn't giving chemotherapy and things like that, and he was having, he actually had a trial. He was disrupting the public order by doing this. He was telling people that, oh, you know, the way you're being told you need to treat your cancer is crazy. People don't understand cancer. I understand cancer. This is what Dr. Hammer was saying. And, but he was having tremendous success. People were living quite long, doing better than when he was using chemotherapy and radiation and surgery. But again, his story is a different story. But I really, you know, if you're a healthcare practitioner, if you're a physician or a naturopath or a chiropractor or anybody who has people coming to you with complex problems that are quite ill, where it isn't, they don't need a Band-Aid, they need a complete understanding if things are ever going to change, if they're ever going to get better. This approach to kind of divining what is the emotional content, what is the psychological part, what is the mind, spirit part that's in the mix with what's making them sick, this is the best way I found to unravel that, put the pieces together, put the puzzle together, and figure it out. And so we have there, I think on the title screen, there is a website, recallhealingonline.com, that has free videos of an introductory talk that was recorded from Gilbert a couple of years ago, just to give you a flavor of what it is. And there's also material at the beginning, and hopefully below this video there will be access to his website and other information if you're interested and want to do more with this, which I think you would love. It is just...
It's helped me a lot in your work.
It's helped me. It's helped me in my practice, and it's just, you know, the whole notion of story, working with people around the story of their lives, not for the sake of therapy, but because you need to know who they are, where they came from, what is the chain of events that led up to them being sick today. It's never just physiology and anatomy.
Yes.
So
I found it very effective also.
So
grateful.
Thank
Thank
you
you for your description.
Thank you.